Hello friends, I must apologize for the delay getting this video out. So in line with my last kind of content-based video on the channel discussing Kaiser Zone and Dagas, today I wanted to put the focus on another support ability and the blades that come with it. In the right scenarios, this damage boost will give you an even larger buff to damage than Dagas will, effectively doubling or even tripling your damage output as an independent multiplier. I am talking of course about Patroka's Fatal Blow ability and Adenine's Battle Wisdom ability. Now, this ability will give you, there's no numbers here on the description, but it will increase your damage dealt when elemental weaknesses are exploited, as the description says. I believe at level 1 this is a 60% increase, and at level 5 it is 100%. So instead of only doing 20% extra damage to elemental weaknesses, you will be doing 120%, or even 220% if you have both of them. Again, this essentially doubles or even triples your damage output. Now obviously this does not have the AoE bonus like Dagas, and it only works against weaknesses, so it definitely is not as globally useful, but when it is useful, it's a very strong buff that I don't think many people really take advantage of. It helps that Patroka is also a fairly strong blade outside of that, with her weapon coming with 25% critical damage, and her other two skills here being pretty nice. Adenine is admittedly not that great outside of the ability that she has to topple on Zeke though. But in this video, I just wanted to show off kind of the practical purposes of this ability and the cool things you can do in order to maximize your own damage against certain enemies. So here's probably the most famous example of the elemental damage factor. So as you know, Elma is a dark element, and she would be weak to light in this case. It just so happens that Corvin has an art on Zeke called Galactic Strike, which is an AoE evasion art with a very high ratio. And considering Corvin gets arc cooldowns every time he dodges attacks, and the Elma's attack multiple times a second, it's very easy to just infinitely spam this art. It's also kind of the way to cheese this mission for people having trouble with it, but that's beside the point. So you can actually use the elemental damage factor from Adenine and Patroka to make your damage better. You saw I was doing about 300,000 damage there. Well, now I've added Patroka just to showcase the damage increase here. I should be doing like 580,000 to about 600,000 now on my crits here. Assuming I get the noise dampener proc, and I don't think I did there. But even still, you can see my damage did increase quite a bit. I don't have the full damage cancel ratio going on right now, but you can still see that the damage did increase quite a bit. So now I have all three of these blades, and that should increase my damage to about 800,000 or so. So once I start using the Galactic Strike spam, that should increase my damage even further. Yep. And once again, this will multiply with other like damage multipliers you have, so you want to make sure to kind of stack all those you can to increase your damage as much as you can here. So 800,000 damage plus here is really nice. Just kind of showcases the basic power of elemental weaknesses here. Here's another example that's just kind of a basic example, just showcasing Ken starts out wind weak for the first half of the battle, and with Adenine and Patroka active, you're going to see just kind of how crazy Fiora's damage can reach. And then I'm going to compare that to the damage without any kind of elemental weaknesses she has. So as I continue stacking up my crit damage passive, I'm going to reach over 700,000, maybe even 800,000 a couple times. And you can just kind of see just how strong Fiora is in this situation here. We've already taken out like half his health. This is on easy mode just for the sake of showcasing things though. And then after this, he'll go out of his, he'll be in his enraged state after we go to the special, and you'll be able to see just kind of the difference in damage there. I'll go from doing 800,000 to about 200,000 on non-rushdown arts. Which again is a very significant difference and kind of showcases the powerful of elemental weaknesses. So here is another application of elemental weaknesses you can have. Sorry for muted audio here. But you can actually use Patroka into Fiora in a chain attack in order to maximize her damage there and get her to cap hits that she might not be able to on like her level 2 special here. And you can also do this basically for any enemy when you're hitting an elemental weakness. So that's just another quick application of it, where you take advantage of elemental weaknesses. And another additional application of it in a more real-time environment is something like this when you're setting up a damage over time effect. So Loth here has a fire weakness, so I have fire type Cutie Pie here. And I have my blade set up in such a way where Zeke's going to topple with Adenine, and Rex is going to try to activate Patroka to break, even though he doesn't technically have to. So both of them are going to be active at the same time when I try to set up my damage over time effect in just a second. And that essentially means that my damage over time effect is going to be greatly increased by like 3 times the amount of damage, which is very, very nice. So like I said, both Adenine and Patroka are active when I do this. You can kind of see just how much damage I'm doing with the level 4 special already. And interestingly enough, when you take advantage of elemental weaknesses like this, you can instantly cap your DOT almost. Like, after one smash here, I believe, I essentially capped it. And that just, again, showcases the power of this ability. So, just gonna show off one more example here of how this can kind of change the atmosphere of certain things. I have sped up the fight here, obviously, just to showcase a more like concrete time of how much of a difference it can end up making across the entire time of a fight. So in this case, Ophion is light weak, so I'm going to use basic Mithra strategy here, fighting him. And we're going to see how much of a difference like elemental weaknesses and something would make in a situation like this. So Mithra does not actually have that much of an additive, so I actually did a comparison with Dagas as well. So in this fight, like I said, Ophion is going to be light weak, so if I have the Adenine Patroka, I'll do about triple damage to what I'm doing now, which will definitely increase how fast damage will be. How much damage I'll deal, something like that. So one thing is worth noting, since it's part of the video and why I'm fighting Ophion specifically in this video, is that some enemies, when they enrage, they will take increased elemental damage, and Ophion is one of them. Carlos is another example in challenge mode, and that's also basically kind of the same kind of typical passive here, but it's something enemy applied and not something that you just automatically get from your technical party members. But it is something worth noting since we're talking about elemental weaknesses. So in this video I have Mithra with Adenine and Patroka, and this time ends up being about twice as fast. It could have been a little bit faster, but I think they died towards the end, and that lost me a little bit of time there. Once again, yeah, I'm using the evasion Mithra here to avoid things on Mithra herself, but no one else is really tanked to or equipped to avoid anything. So yeah, they do die there, and I do end up losing a little bit of time because of that, but you can kind of see just how much faster it is in general. Once the Supernova ends, she'll be dead. And for the last part, I did a comparison with Daga. So like I said, this would be about the even out point. Mithra does not have any additives on her skill tree, and she only has 2 aux core slots, so you can't exactly hit high additive damage. So using Dagas, you'll have about the even out point on someone like Mithra, compared to just using both elemental weaknesses here. So naturally, in this case, it's going to be about the almost exact same time as I did with Adenine and Patroka, but since my blades, I don't think, died technically towards the end here, or at least they don't until close to the end, it ends up being slightly faster just because of that, but otherwise they would have ended almost exactly the same time. So yeah, Zeke dies there, but overall it doesn't matter because he ends up dying anyway. So one final thing to note about elemental weaknesses is that Numa will actually always hit elemental weaknesses of blades. So her damage is normally very weak compared to most blades since she's kind of locked in E-rank thrust, and that kind of affects her damage output and makes her a little bit weaker than other blades, especially since she also has no additives or anything like that. And she's very powerful in the story, but she definitely falls off when all blades reach their S+ strength, and that kind of can show here. But you can actually still hit some pretty high damage with her if you do have the elemental weakness exploitation here. And I guess that's really about all there is to say about that. You can kind of see she's doing a lot more damage than you would expect out of Numa. So that is something to note if you do like using Numa, or if you don't have like a lot of max blades and you're like in post-game or something. But if you have like maybe Adenine, I guess you wouldn't have Patroka unless you did New Game Plus. So if you do have them and you want to just like kind of maximize your current damage output with minimal effort, if you've got Numa, you can take advantage of her skill set here with Adenine and Patroka to do as much damage as you can. So as you can see, the applications of elemental damage can be applied anywhere if you know how, even if you have other party members equipped on your allies. And with such a big increase to damage, it's something very worth using, especially on blades who already have a lot of additive damage if you want to really bring out their potential. It's something that definitely helps Patroka and Adenine be much better blades than they would be otherwise, and makes them great options to consider on a team. Patroka is actually a very strong offensive blade on her own merits, having some of the best DPS in the game, especially if 3 enemies have died, making her even more worth using in cases like that. But besides that, I don't really have a ton else to say here, so if an enemy has an elemental weakness, it may be best to try to think about exploiting it. It might be useful to you. I always try to think of methods to do this in my times if it's something applicable. Well, that should about cover it though. Hope you guys have learned something. And as usual, if you want to see more content or learn about the game, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe to my channel. Also be sure to follow my Twitter and Twitch and all of that good stuff. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching and have a blessed day.